It's the Titterpigs. And now it's time for Titterpigs, the RPG podcast. So am I getting paid for this?
Hey, here we are. 2021's come to an end and 2022 is looming right around the corner. Scott and I have brought together a couple of our gaming mates for a discussion on our personal gaming highlights of 2021 and the things we're looking forward to in 2022. So before we get started, let me introduce our two guests that we have for you tonight. First, we have from BudsRPGreview and BudsZINEreview is Bud. Bud is the man behind the hands of some of the internet's best video reviews and operator of these two YouTube channels. Bud, say hi to everybody.
Hi to everybody.
Oh, well done.
I said hi to everybody.
I know. That was great.
There's the voice everyone knows.
Yes. All right.
Do you
next,
want me to go full ASMR here or just normal?
Let's keep it normal for the listeners.
Okay then.
Okay. Next, our other guest for this show is going to be from the reviews from Relay and Unboxing in the Nook. It's Pookie.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Pookie publishes loads of reviews every month, and while sipping tea, he entertains the masses with his Unboxing in the Nook YouTube channel. Pookie, floor is yours.
Good evening, and you'll be glad to know that I am equipped with a nice hot cup of tea.
Pookie's never without his cup of tea.
Almost never.
Okay, almost never. I was waiting for that. All right, and while he doesn't need any introductions, I don't want him to feel left out. He's the other half of Titterpigs. Scott!
Yay! This is the sound of my voice, and back again and looking forward to the potential rumble in the jungle. I don't know, I can't think of anything better for this, but looking forward to seeing the opinions and everything that comes from both Bud and Pookie.
I would suggest perhaps a role-playing rumpus.
As long as it's not diceless. Moving on. Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, we're going to move on. All right. So, yes, I'm Keith. I'm going to be the moderator for our little discussion. So don't worry, but I'm going to be an active participant in this discussion as well. This will be a two-part series. This is part one, in which we're going to count down our top 3 games that we've enjoyed in 2021. The second part will be what we're looking forward to in 2022, but that's going to be for another episode. Before we get started, though, the order in which we're all going to kind of talk in this discussion has been randomly determined. We know the order, so you'll kind of figure it out as we get started. We're going to start with our number 3 choice, and then we're going to work up to our number 1 pick of 2021. And the last thing I'd like to mention before we do get started is you can probably expect a little bit of passionate discussion from each of the participants on the games that are being slung around because, well, we're all gamers, readers, reviewers, and we're all passionate about the games that we like. So, Scott, anything you want to add before we get started?
Not really. I mean, other than the fact, just a big thank you for Bud and Pookie to join us on here. I've been looking forward to this for some time. Excited to have both of you on here, providing contrasting opinions and whatnot. And I'm sure there's quite a few people who will be interested to listen to this. And I don't think I've ever seen Bud blush in my life, but I'm trying really hard to see that, but it hasn't happened yet. But yes, that's
I don't know. He's
all I'm
kind
gonna,
of close.
yeah, that's all I'm going to add. Just thank you, and hopefully this turns out as the big hot mess that I hope it turns out to be. So back to you.
All right. So yeah, let's do this. Starting with you, Scott. What is your number 3 game for 2021? What's tickled your fancy?
Well, this technically is something that didn't come out in 2021, and I think I'm going to just kind of start with quite a few of us here. I know kind of feel like even though a game is technically published a certain year, some of us don't feel like it's actually new until we get the physical book in our hands. And for me, that physical book was Cyberpunk Red, when the actual book came out, and it was there for me to page through in its entirety. Had played several of the Cyberpunk Red games within the starter set, where it was on a lot of the virtual online cons that we did. Started a bi-weekly campaign here with some people locally, and and of course the added influence from the video game. So many people were excited about this, not just people who were fans of the old Cyberpunk game, but it also introduced new people who only knew about it from the video game, the video role-playing game. But it's a wonderful game as far as what it did in regards to the old Cyberpunk game. I feel personally that it did clean up a lot of the overly the overly advanced and focused combat system of the old game. Highly detailed, complicated to almost a deficit, or for most people. But it really, really nailed the world of this dystopian cyberpunkish game that kind of started it all, as far as I'm concerned, within the role-playing game world, and still maintains the crown. The current game is a lot easier to not only grok, for lack of a better term, but also as far as introducing new people into it. You can literally just set it down and you're up and running, within a few minutes. Now, that's not including character creation. Character creation is a bit complicated, but the game itself is not, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details of it itself, but for me and the people that I played with, it has been a blast to play this year. And it has inspired some of my friends to create their own works within Cyberpunk. So if a game does that to anybody, I think it's, worthy of the, of the title of, my favorite game of 2021, or one of them.
All right. That's fair. All right. So Pookie, Bud, have either of you guys played it? Read it?
I had a chance to play it because actually Scott ran an adventure for us. And I did my painted trick of picking up a dead body and using it as a shield. And it was kind of fun. Basically action-orientated. Didn't get a lot into the sort of the technical aspects of the setting with the net running and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've not played Cyberpunk since back in the day. Mm-hmm. So, and if I'm honest, Cyberpunk-esque things are not really my bag. Mm-hmm. But I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, I kind of fall in the same school with Bud. Cyberpunk, I like some aspects of it, but it's not something I normally gravitate towards normally. But I have a question, though, for Scott. When the game first published, a lot of folks felt it was, I don't want to say half-baked, because there was a lot of, don't roll your eyes at me, that there was a lot of mechanical issues with the game. Were those online rumblings that I saw misplaced?
With the new version is what you're asking.
Yes, absolutely. The new version. Like, was there a bunch of errata? Was there?
Well, yes, and I don't think it's really with the mechanics of the game. There was more of a, I guess, from an editing perspective. Some things were misplaced. Some things were put in the wrong. Some tables were placed in the wrong categories. A 01 was placed where a 05 should have been. Things such as that. But what it did was it didn't really complicate it. It didn't break the game, so to speak. Now, if there's any other rumblings besides that, I think that's more of a personal level. A lot of the rumblings that I heard was from the old school Cyberpunk people who just love that ridiculous amount of crunch that's involved in the game. And you get that from a lot of games that when they make it more easy to access, accessible. And a lot of that accessibility means cleaning up, tightening up the rules, and maybe throwing some of it away to make it more enjoyable for a broader audience, not just the people who, love this, giant amount of tables and a bunch of crunch and this huge detail to realism that can occur in a lot of the older games. But yeah, it's
okay. So I guess maybe then what I read was probably related to the errata for the editing errata and what have you.
Well,
so, and I maybe mistook what it was for. Well, related to.
To be fair, our Talsorian games does kind of have a bit of an issue with a lot of errata coming after things being published, but that's for a different podcast.
Am I right in assuming that, and I may be wrong about this, that you had to pay for the quick start?
It was a box starter set. I don't know if there was a quick start though that you could like something you could download or get from a drive-thru or something.
I remember someone saying that you had to buy the quick start rules.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the quick start. I know they had the jump start, which I believe they were calling their entry level box set, their beginner starter set, which came out before the book did.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing I think people were kind of disappointed, certainly with that jump start or quick start set, was it just didn't give you all of the options that people wanted.
Right. And once again, it is a great introduction, but I think if I had to, throw a little bit of negative aspect to it is when the full rules came out, it literally made their jump-start unusable because there were a bunch of changes between the jump-start and the core rulebook.
Okay, so maybe that's what I picked up on.
And that could be. I mean, it's still a great way to get into the spirit of the game, but you are going to be doing a few things differently that you did in the quick start that you are going to do in the core. Now, our Talsorian, what they did was there was a bunch of materials that was provided for the quick start that was free that you can download that they've updated for free with the core rules. So it's widely supported by them, and they do an excellent job of that. But it's just there's a lot of wannabe Cyberpunk games out there, but this is the the end all as far in my opinion. So there we go.
Okay. Awesome. Anybody got anything else they want to add before we move on? All right. Next up, Pookie, what's your number 3 for this year?
My number 3 is Desert Moon of Karth by Joel Hines, which is a sandbox adventure for the Mothership sci-fi horror role-playing game. And it's radically different to what you would expect from a Mothership scenario, which you normally would expect some kind of one-shot or a sort of like a horror scenario, a bit like Alien. This is a space western, sort of like influenced by things like Firefly and Dune. And it takes place, essentially, it's a sandbox on a sand world that is sort of cut off because there's a ring of orbital satellites around it which destroy all incoming and outgoing flying objects. And you can only access it via a rickety orbital elevator. And then once you get down on the planet, it's really just sort of like a location, sort of like 10 locations of interesting places and factions and NPCs and tables, which you can use to create a sandbox, a series of adventures in reaction to what the players want to do. And it packs this all into 52 pages. So you've got a complete campaign there in sort of like, your Wild West sci-fi action style. But if you don't want to run it for Mothership, really versatile. So you can take away and drop it into the Star Wars universe or run it using the Cepheus Deluxe mechanics. And the other thing about it I like is that it marks something different coming out of ZineQuest on Kickstarter, because the fanzines traditionally are sort of like anthologies of content. This is a really focused content, just one setting in a lengthy fanzine.
I looked at it. I've given it a quick skim. I can tell you, I mean, you 4 or you 3 know it's the influences of the game and the style of it aren't Keith's cup of tea. Spaghetti westerns and its influences of like the Firefly movie and TV show. Yes, Scott.
I think the audience would like to know, why do you hate fun, Keith? Anyways, go on.
Keith doesn't hate fun. I think we have to go back to episode 1 to find out why.
Can we take a vote on that?
We can take a vote.
I think Keith's very, very defined in the fun he likes.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Keith
very
has
kind of looking at a view through a keyhole kind of thing of fun.
I have my very specifics that I like. I do branch out from time to time, and let's be fair. I last year this year. I don't know. Pandemics all run together at this point. I did play Firefly and I did play a couple of sci-fi games, but I will give credit where credit's due. I think the uniqueness of Desert Moon of Karth is pretty cool. I like its concept. I like its approachability because it's from Mothership, or you can put it with something like Cepheus or whatever, or any other kind of generic sci-fi engine. So its adaptability is good. Key's cup of tea, not so much.
See, I was thinking if someone told me that was a campaign for Star Wars, I would believe them by the sound of it. It doesn't sound like it fits with what Mothership does on the face of it, which is essentially space horror. It sounds like something completely different, and maybe that's why you enjoyed it as much as you did.
I'll tack onto that real quick and also agree with you, Bud, that it does. What it does is, I think but in my opinion, it's expanded the what Mothership can be or what it could be. It does remove a lot of the cosmic horror aspects that so many other Mothership adventures are known for. Even some of the little mini campaigns such as this. But I think what it's done is it's opened that up to a lot of people who necessarily wouldn't want to try the Mothership mechanics because they're not a big fan of horror. So with this making it more of the spaghetti western sci-fi game that may be more up someone's alley, and mingle in a little bit of for those who are familiar with like the No Man's Sky video game, these aliens in here are no less odd or weird than a lot of the horrific aspects of Mothership. But the things that's just missing is they're not there to eat your soul. I mean, they're there to be foils for the campaign, but they're not cosmically horror-inducing aspects of some other reality like a lot of the other Mothership is. And I kind of feel like that maybe that's where Mothership might be going with its new Kickstarter, and to a certain degree, its branch making it more universal. But that's just my observation. Pookie.
Yeah, and I'd come back on what Scott was saying there, and essentially that there is actually an element of horror there, but it's creepy horror, and it's weird horror, but it's sort of in the background. You've really got to delve deep into it to find it. It's not essentially in your face as it normally is in Mothership, where the horror comes after you, because typically it's a one-shot.
I'd be willing to play it, but I kind of have to agree with Bud. I mean, when you pitch it, like you give that little elevator pitch, it sounds like Star Wars. I mean, little sand world, and it's got this kind of spaghetti western thing going. And I would have to agree with Bud.
Undoubtedly, it wears its influences essentially, on its sleeve.
Poncho.
Sure.
On its poncho.
On its poncho, yeah.
I will get around to reading it before 12th edition Mothership comes out.
Speaking of reading it before 12th edition Mothership, Bud, what is your number 3 game for this year?
Right. Before I go into my number 3, I have a huge caveat here, because my push this year was not to read as much as I normally would. Instead of 6 books, I've only done 3. My push this year was to finish off Call of Cthulhu, because I've been doing a series on my channel, which took up the first half of the year. So it's only now where I'm getting to the point where I can read more things without it kind of getting in the way of Call of Cthulhu. So something I read recently and something I backed on Kickstarter, and it's the Dee Sanction by Paul Baldowski and made by All Rolled Up. I don't think I've ever quite seen a game like it. Some people have said it's almost like Delta Green in the Tudor age. Others have said it's a bit like Call of Cthulhu. It's not quite like any of them,
right?
To be honest, because ultimately in the Dee Sanction, you start off as criminals and you've got like minor magical powers, and you're doing it for the Queen, and the supposed good guys, like the kind of church, are the bad guys who were trying to kill the Queen. And I mean, the whole package was nice. I mean, I did have my problems with it, which a lot of other people had the same problems. The book was beautiful. Not a huge fan of the art, as I've said on me, but I understood why it was done the way it was done. But I just think as a setting, it was really well researched, which is not surprising given Paul Baldowski is a history buff. It was really well researched. It really felt like it could be part of the setting rather than completely unbelievable. I mean, given how crazy John Dee was, it felt like it could be doable, and kind of it really straddles real history with COD history really well. Yeah, so that's my number 3 pick.
Pookie, by all means, you're the guest here. You go first.
No, I was impressed by this as well. I mean, essentially, I described it as Dr. John Dee's Dirty Half Dozen, as in, the Dirty Dozen movie, because essentially all the player characters are disposable and they really come from all walks of life. So yeah, you can have, a playwright accompanied by a gong scourer, investigating mysteries and knowing, very little about what they're encountering, and armed with almost infinitesimally small magic that they've been taught, knowing that if they screw up, they're going to be, pressed or hanged or, beheaded.
It's another interesting thing to note is the way the game has been designed. It really promotes playing as a team.
Absolutely.
You can't do it. You can't do it on your own. You need a team of people equipped with different skills to be able to get anywhere and to be able to complete any of the adventures. And it's really cleverly by design done. And you don't see that often, I don't think.
I absolutely wholeheartedly concur with that. I mean, because if you can't build the team, get the different skill sets aligned, you're not going to succeed. Playing as a criminal that is given a last reprieve before the hangman's noose, if you don't succeed, well, guess where you're going to go? You're going to go right back to jail. Or you could perish as a result of the mission.
I don't think I have much to add that has been said already, but one of the things that I find special about it, and like a lot of games like this, is it's such a small book, but what it provides is immense. Like Bud had mentioned, it's just it's amazing sometimes when I see authors like this just provide a wealth of material in a small little package, whereas someone else can produce an 800-page book, and things just get lost. Not that specific 800-page book, I'm talking generally speaking, Pookie, but things can just get lost. But the other thing is like, also once again, like Bud had mentioned, it's just that period of time. I'm not well versed in it, but if you look up that period, you look up John Dee, there's going to be a wealth of information that you can, have these adventures. You can create your own, on top of it being supported as it has been by Paul. In the short amount of time after the book came out, there's been a wonderful amount of adventures, things that have been provided. They're all great. And I think it could be one of those where it's fulfilling. You can have a short-term campaign and come to a conclusion with it and move on and feel like that you've had a wonderful time. It's something that doesn't need to occupy 2 years of your gaming time in order to feel like you've got it. This one you can probably have 8, 9, 12 session campaign and come to a conclusion and go, that was fantastic, and then you have that wonderful game memory to last you through your lifetime. So it's just a fun, and this is coming from someone who was absolutely 100% not an Anglophile. So moving on.
That's an absolute lie, Scott. One other thing about the Dee Sanction as well is it makes the point, if you tell anyone, who's going to believe you anyway? If you fail, you're more than likely dead or are going to be dead soon. And if you pass, someone else gets all the credit if you succeed. And I love that kind of idea of, yeah, you're given a second chance, but it's not a real second chance.
Bringing it back around to what you said, what people have claimed, it's kind of like this game or kind of like that game. It's kind of like nothing else. It really is a game unto itself. Like mechanically, it's simple, little to no learning curve to play. It's very approachable, especially if you love history or love that particular period of history, and you can get right into it. It's not Call of Cthulhu in the Tudor time. It's not
Delta Green.
It's not Delta Green in the Tudor time. It's not Trail of Cthulhu in the Tudor time. It's not anything else, specifically. It's its own thing. It's a wonderful little game.
Yeah, I mean, the newest possibly genre I would possibly opt in saying is in its horror. I mean, it's dealing with folk horror and possibly sort of like the horror that an author like Dennis Wheatley was writing about. But that's put against a framework of the religious schism of the period,
right?
And also, the social differences as well. And they're really nice. That's nicely captured in the scenarios.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I agree. Oh, I guess it's my turn for my number 3.
If you say tune, I'm going to be really disappointed.
No, I'm thinking something, not to interrupt you, Keith, but maybe something else that starts with T. But sorry, go on.
Well, as Scott alluded to, it's Pookie. It's not T, and no, I wouldn't like any right now. And my number 3 for 2021 is Old School Essentials, the advanced version of the game by Necrotic Gnome. For me, this was at heart, I'm an old school gamer. I grew up with early editions of D&D. I started with Frank Menser's Red box set. I got it for Christmas in like 1983, 84. My memory slips, fails me from time to time because I'm getting old. And I go in and out of that gaming era, with different rule sets throughout the years, the last decade or so. But I always come back to it. But when I got my hands on the basic version of Old School Essentials, I fell in love with it. Scott's grinning at me. Why are you grinning at me, Scott? And then I fell in love with it. To me, it was the best version of D&D that I grew up with. And now, obviously, it's not Menser's series of D&D. It's the Moldvay Cook version, which is equally as good, if not better in a lot of ways. But again, it's going to depend who you ask. And I found this version of it to be the best presentation of it. It's clean, it's sleek, it puts all the information on 2-page spreads. It's wonderful to flip through. It's easy to use when you're running it or playing it. That being said, when they launched the Kickstarter for the advanced version, which incorporated some of the previous advanced books into the basic version and collated it all into a 2-book set, I backed that, and then it delivered March or April. I don't know. Everything's running together these days. And it's beautifully done. The 2-book set is fantastic. I think moving forward, I don't think anything's going to top it in the OSR for me. It's going to be my go-to from this point forward. Now, I know Scott's got it and run it and played using it, and I know Pookie has as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Bud, have you used Old School Essentials?
Well, I'll tell you where I stand on this. Is I never played D&D back in the day. Like most of the people here, D&D wasn't my first game. Runequest was my first game. And then when I first played D&D, I couldn't stand it. And then the next time I looked at anything Dungeons and Dragons related was AD&D, 2nd edition, which I then just murdered for years. I ran a 14-year campaign. So the whole old school revival thing, while I understand the reason for it, it doesn't grab me like it seems to grab other players. I was more excited for RuneQuest Glorantha than I was for anything kind of OSR related. So when in conventions and things like that, I see people offering this, and as a game, it never kind of grabs me because I know it's kind of a refined D&D essentially, isn't it?
Yeah.
A refined BD&D, not a refined 5th edition D&D.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the grab for me that it does for those people who grew up on D&D. And the advanced version had elements from AD&D, from what I believe. Yes. Is this right?
Yes, that is
correct.
Correct.
As someone who absolutely battered an AD&D campaign for years, for me, it has nothing more to offer. I'd rather try other games from that point. So each time one of the Old School Essentials have come across, it's never been something I've been that interested in. But I understand the reason and that people love it because they have that kind of hankering to back in the day when they started.
I can appreciate it. For me, it's a nostalgia thing. Yeah. I mean, I have a rule cyclopedia, and it's very reminiscent of Rule Cyclopedia, and it's kind of color tones, but it's so much. The presentation is far better.
Cleaner.
Oh, absolutely. Far cleaner, better all around.
Mm-hmm. Even handier, given its size.
Yeah.
Only it's a digest-sized book. I think the one thing great about it is once you've got it, is that it makes so much other gaming content instantly accessible. So for example, we have been recently, we played a scenario from, I think it's like White Dwarf 14 or something like that, called The Lich Way, okay? And it's a classic White Dwarf scenario from 1988, 1979, something like that. And we just slotted it straight in. It felt, as if we'd never been away, as it were. And it really, really, itched that nostalgic, itch, scratched it.
I think one of the biggest draws to it, at least for me, is I'm not necessarily the same aspect of like what Bud did. My general introduction was through the basic D&D sets, but never really spent as much time with it as we did with AD&D. I mean, and essentially worshipping at the feet of 2nd edition when that came out for quite some time. And we never really ventured back to basic for, I'm just going to call it basic for, just keep it simple, but never going back to that version of D&D, even as the years went on, as it went to 3.5 and, 4 and all the rest, because not necessarily because we didn't want to play it. It was just another, jumble of rules to just kind of, try to flip through to organize these games. And it was just easier to play things that were recent and a lot more accessible. When OSC came out, I kind of equate it to, you're getting that wonderful classic car, that 57 Chevy that's just beautiful on the outside, and inside is a modern engine, air conditioning, a wonderful sound system. It's just the inside of Old School Essentials is just so much easier to access the rules, so much easier to introduce other people to this style of gaming without having to go through the mess of a lot of the the rules cyclopedia or the older books. And let's be honest, it's another way to enjoy these old adventures without spending, $500 fucking on a basic red box.
Or having to do the legwork to convert them.
Right. So it's I think it's a mixed bag where it allows people who enjoyed it to go back to it easier, but then also introduce people who've never played this old school style of game and not hand them a stack of books that they're never going to want to read anyways. Here's a nice, neat manual that you can flip through and understand it without, going back and forth through a bunch of rules that just don't make sense. So it just cut off a lot of the fat.
Yeah, and I mean, the great thing about those rules is the options. Because when you come to it, if you don't want to use THACO to hit armor class 0, it gives you the option to use ascending armor class. And it does this again so that you can run it with a certain nod to the ease of a more modern
It allowed heathens and non-heathens to come together and play the same game.
Why would you want to use THACO? I mean, even back in the day, I hated that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, Keith is in the middle of running us through B2, right. Keep on the Borderlands, in a complete nostalgia fest.
I am, and yes, I still hate THACO.
Okay, we all voted on it and said, let's go THACO because let's do the whole nostalgia trip, the whole thing.
Right.
Okay. Normally you wouldn't do that, but again, let's do it just one more time to see how bad it is. And okay, it's not intuitive. Okay, it doesn't make any sense now. However you feel about it, okay? Rolling ascending armor class is just, well, it's obviously easier. But it's there if people want to use it. And in this instance, we did. Would I use that on an ongoing basis?
Would I do it again using it? No.
It's not even THACO, it's THACZA or THAC0.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest, though. At the end of the day, regardless how horrible it is, at least you are rolling dice. So,
okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Shots fired.
So go ahead, Keith.
No, I was just gonna say, I love it. It's, you guys have hit on some good stuff. It brings a little bit of the advanced, the first edition AD&D vibe into it, because I played the living shit out of AD&D second edition, and then went on to 3, avoided 4, went on to 5, that kind of stuff. And I didn't, as a kid, I never, and as a teen, and then went off into adulthood, I didn't go back until, the last decade or so. And having tried a bunch of these retro clones, I found my pinnacle. I thought I found some other ones that were really good, and they're really good, but this is like right up there. This is the top.
And one last thing, as an actual book itself, as the 2-pair books, it's actually charming. It's got its own charm as a physical product.
Yeah, I concur.
So you agree that Don Henley is wrong? You can go back.
We can go back, and we're going to move on. Moving forward. All right. So unless anybody's got anything to add to
that's my one joke. So I've already wasted it. So
all right. Scott shot his wad. He's got his one joke out of the way. All right, moving on. And we're going to come back around full circle to Scott. Mm-hmm. So, Scott, what is your number 2 pick for this year?
Well, my number 2 pick is something that I haven't read extensively yet, but I did get to play in to the completion of the campaign, and that is Chaosium's Children of Fear. I believe was penned by Lynn Willis, if I'm not mistaken, with the help of Lynn what?
Lynn Hardy?
Lynn Hardy, yes. Sorry, I'm getting him confused. But I was invited to play in the game by, some of you may know him, Tristan Narborough, right? I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, Tristan. You don't curse me out in Japanese if I'm not. But he invited me to play in that campaign just over a year ago. And I had, during the middle of the campaign, I received the book. It's still in the shrink wrap, but it's one of those that now that we've completed it, I'm going to go ahead and dive into it. But just this is more of the experience of a player within this game. I mean, it is a Call of Cthulhu game, so it's going to have a lot of the Call of Cthulhu tropes. But the big thing about it is where it takes place, and that's in the areas of China, Tibet, and a lot of that areas during this time, which has a very in-depth focus on what things were like there. So whereas a lot of Call of Cthulhu games take place in a place that's familiar, and then of course the disconcerting things are the things that are happening to you with what's happening within the mythos or the aspects of horror and fear. This, you're a fish out of water, not just within that, but also where you're at, because just the 1920s areas within China, India, Tibet, and all that, it's almost like an alien land itself. And so you're never comfortable. You're always kind of trying to find your footing as you're dealing with the mythos aspect and the cultural aspects, as you are almost taking this wonderful historical tour of all of that. It's almost disguised as like those games that we played when we were kids, like the Oregon Trail, where it's like you're learning stuff, but you're playing a game. Came away from this with a wonderful respect for the history of that time, and also with what was going on in the world then that a lot of people wouldn't even know or wouldn't even consider to look up if there wasn't the amount of research that was done by Lynn Hardy within this game. And it was just an absolute joy. And I can say that on top of it, it's done. I got to complete a campaign. I don't think I've actually done that in a very long time. We've lost a few people along the way, but yeah, there's a lot of, and I really couldn't tell you without reading it how much of it was aspects of the cultural side of it. The mysticism and whatnot is very, very focused on the mysticism at the time, but how much of that is actually historical references to that, or some of it slightly twisted within the Cthulhu-esque aspects of it. But either way, at least for my character that I was playing, it was just wonderful to be constantly out of my depth in everything and whatever it was doing. And so it just had an absolute blast. I highly recommend it. May not be necessarily for everyone, but it is, in my opinion, for the length of it, one of the best Call of Cthulhu campaigns that I've read or got to play in. So
fantastic. I think we all own it.
Yeah. I've not read it yet, but I do own it.
I either, unfortunately.
No, I literally took mine out of shrink 3 days ago. So no, I haven't read mine, but I am looking forward to it. I know there's a lot of work that went into it, a lot of research. And I know I know Lynn's very, very proud of the work she put into it. And I've heard nothing but good things about it. And I know Tristan loved running that game for you guys. So he talks about it regularly when we're online. So
yeah, I think if there was one kind of, one thing that may be a deterrent for, some keepers, it's just the attention to detail. It's one of those where, a lot of these, the historical aspects are not sidebars. They're things that you really should be applying to the game to make it as culturally significant within what you're playing within, and not just hand wave it, to get to the nitty gritty aspect of, the Cthulhu side of things. It's definitely something that you kind of want it to be an intentional slow burn, not because of the game itself, but because of the historical aspects that you're feeding the players and what you're discovering as you're doing that. So
that's fair.
Yeah.
I'll have to keep that in mind, because that is one I want to read and run in the near future.
Okay.
Y'all don't hold me to that.
Too late. It's recorded.
Damn it.
Yeah. I've got that in my diary now. When is that happening?
2020 never?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think what's interesting about the fact that Tristan run it for you is that he lives in Japan and speaks Japanese. And that probably lent a lot towards it.
Mm-hmm.
Him being embedded in Asia.
Right.
and I'm being fluent in an Asian language, it probably helped the campaign along.
Oh, wait, I without question. I mean, Tristan is, probably one of the more well-traveled people I know, where he's, been throughout his life and currently where he's from. And it helps. I mean, it definitely helps. It's not something that if you've never been there, it's not something that you need to worry about because it's so well researched, but it does help. Like if I was running a game for you at Disneyland, because because of the years I've spent there, I can run that like the back of my hand, and there wouldn't be a problem. No, I'm not going to run a game set at Disneyland.
No, I was going to ask you, could you not inflict such a horror upon us? Thanks.
Fair enough. Well,
better watch out because Disney will be sending the lawyers after this podcast. They will.
That's all right. All right. So next up is Pookie. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is also a Call of Cthulhu title. It is the Eldritch New England Holiday Collection from Golden Goblin Press. And this is a radically different take upon the mythos, also New England, essentially Lovecraft country, in that you play children. Now, the interesting thing is that there are scenarios out there in which, in Call of Cthulhu, like the Dare, typically Halloween scenarios where you play children or teenagers. In this one, it's set in the 1920s. You are exposed to the mythos, but not necessarily I would say a totally horrific, in-your-face kind of mythos. It's weird and it's creepy. And over the course of 4 holidays, the 4 scenarios in the book, you join your cousins at family gatherings in Dunwich and Arkham and Innsmouth and Kingsport and have weird adventures, essentially whilst these sort of like the adults sort of like are off camera. And it's a really interesting way of looking at the mythos sort of like from looking at it upwards rather than as children, rather than sort of like as downwards as adults, if you see what I mean. It's completely sort of like a new perspective. And eventually, essentially, the pre-generated characters after the campaign, it's suggested that they go on and sort of like face the mythos and deal with bigger threats. But here it's their first experiences. I mean, for example, there's a fantastic a scenario in Kingsport where they get sucked into sort of like a version of the Dreamlands and have Christmas adventures because it's all set at Christmas. But at the same time, they're getting involved in family affairs as well, and that adds quite a lot of sort of like good opportunities for role playing.
So I don't own that collection, but I have played, I've read and run the original Christmas scenario. How different is this new version of it from the original?
I can't say because I haven't seen I've not looked at the original in a very long time because obviously it came out in a monograph sort of like over a decade ago. I loved the original. So yeah, it's really rich and deep and such a good opportunity for role playing that you don't always necessarily get in a Call of Cthulhu scenario as written in the setup because it's personal. And it's the other thing it's the one thing that I've never seen in a Call of Cthulhu anthology is a sense of warmth to the book and the setup. It is about family, it is about your friends. And although it's dangerous and it's not deadly as such, and it's just I think I just really enjoyed it. It was different, it was interesting, and as a campaign, it would really, as I say, make for a radically different take upon the mythos.
I mean, the only warmth you normally feel in the Call of Cthulhu campaigns when you set the building on fire, isn't it?
I was waiting for that. Yeah,
and Delta Green, to be fair.
Yeah,
both.
I'm not as familiar with it as Pookie is because he's read through it, but I've touched on it. I did a kind of on my silly little YouTube channel, this kind of pull from the shelf, and I wanted to focus on that, and just kind of did a flip through of it. It's I mean, just even flipping through it, not going in detail, you see a lot of the aspects that you've touched on, Pookie, and it looks like it would be just a blast. It'd be one of those where if you actually had, is it 6 total? I believe it's 6.
Yeah, 6 total, and I think that's the one problem with it is that it does demand 6 players. The other nice thing about it is the illustrations. The illustrations in there are really fantastic, and they do impart that sense of family and togetherness and warmth.
Well, the one way I believe they suggested, or one that I saw, it would be wonderful if you actually had 6 people, 6 friends that you could get together around these actual holidays to play through this scenario, and then once the year is done, you've completed them in the same kind of realm and aspect of what they've experienced as children. And that would be fun. That would be something might be difficult to tackle, but if people are able to do that, it's something to definitely set up and look forward to. You always have this, oh God, it's almost Halloween, so now it's time to do the Call of Cthulhu one, or it's almost Christmas, we're moving on to the next chapter and whatnot.
But if you're going to do it properly, you do it live in the actual locations. Though I don't know how you're going to get to Innsmouth these days.
We'll just put it on your credit card, Pookie, because it's not a cheap trip for 6 people to meet specifically in those areas.
Nope.
So we have it on record. If Pookie's buying, Keith's flying. Let's go.
Excellent. I'll start searching for an Airbnb in Innsmouth now.
Yeah, I don't want to stay in Innsmouth. Weirdly.
I'm with Bud.
Well, technically, I think that might be a C&B.
I think Pookie's onto something there.
That's your one, right. Pookie. That's your one. You've got a warning.
Oh. Oh boy. All right. Bud, what is your number 2 for this year?
My number 2 for this year is the Runequest Starter Set. I only actually finished putting together my review of it today, but I've not filmed it yet. So a lot of it's quite fresh in my memory. I remember thinking when I was reading it, I wish we'd had this back in the day when I was learning to play it, because I'm surprised we were that stupid. I'm surprised we made sense of RuneQuest, to be fair. And the approach they took was not one I thought they would take. I thought they would try and cram as much in as they can, but they editorialized the book quite well in that not putting character creation in, leaving sorcery out, leaving out. I mean, they touched on like shamans, but they didn't go into the in-depth of how a shaman works. And to be fair, they're the things that, in my experience, seem to trip up longer players as much as longer term players as much as younger players. People just come into RuneQuest. So I think the decision to leave, they've left out the right things. I don't think it was ever about trying to cram in as much as they could. I think it was about putting in what was right rather than what was complete. One thing I found of interest, which surprised me, was book 2. I genuinely thought opening it, they would go in, it'd be head first into the Lightbringer's quest and, Gabaji and Nicelor and Arcat and the Crimson Bat, and they just touched on them, which I think was a really clever decision, because then that leaves those things for players to go on and discover, should they like it.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of putting in Johnstown instead is inspired, because it means you'll keep on coming back to it, because as we know, Johnstown is a hub for adventurers. The scenario I just had a flick through. Obviously the Rainbow Mounds are in it because you get a map of the Rainbow Mounds. I think the whole package is really cleverly put together. And one thing that I've noticed is the art. There's such a wide variety of the type of art in it. There's like certain pages, there's full pages of like a city. I mean, there's a particular one, a full colour city drawn out with little people and everything. And then when it's talking about Johnstown, it's got like black and white sketches of like kind of headshots of the main players. And then other pages, there's art down the sides, which is like stained glass in a church. And the cover of book 2, the Dragon Rise, the art is just tremendous throughout it. And people who've seen my channel before know I've been hypercritical of the art in the past, but I think they've got past that now, and it's probably time I should.
Nah.
Yeah.
Nah.
Wow. But it's not me with number 1 pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's only number 2.
I don't know what I can add. I mean, as a new player to RuneQuest, I fell in love with the starter kit. I read most of the core book to a certain point, and then it was like reading Greek and Latin smashed together with a little bit of Mandarin, and I stopped. But I got the starter kit. All the pieces fell into place. I just found it to be in nice, concise, bite-sized bits that were easy to understand and clear very clear written language. God, it was a dream to read.
One thing to point out as well is they make a point of saying they left out things like chariot combat. I mean, and rightly so. What beginning player needs that?
Exactly.
Really?
Right.
You know, strike ranks are still something that tripped me up as a player, even having played it for so long. And when I read the way they reworded the rules for a new generation, it actually made it all kind of click together in my mind. There were some things, like, for example, skills over 100%. The way they explain it, it actually made it finally make sense to the point where I could tell you how it works without having to go, oh, there's a rule for that, and having to look it up. Which is, you know, that's a testament to how they've gone about the way they thought about writing it. They haven't just copied and pasted it from the
core
from the core book. They've rewritten it in a way that new players will understand it.
Which is something that I was going to point out. I mean, like Keith, I'm relatively new to RuneQuest myself, but one thing I can touch on is we all are familiar with starter sets, box sets that provide bits of information. Some are fantastic, some are okay written, but then there are others where it literally looks like they just went to the PDF, copied and pasted a few things into a small little booklet, threw some dice in and said, here, give me $40. With really no real intention of it being a real introduction, just kind of like something to make a buck on and then go pay $60 for the core book. This one, as you said, is written with the really true intention of being a introduction to almost everything that at least is the core foundation of what RuneQuest and Glorantha is. Not just, essentially an over-glorified GM screen, which is a lot of the poorly done starter sets can be sometimes. So, but it's just, and like a lot of the good ones, it's not one and done. It's not, here's the rules and here's an adventure and good luck. You could spend quite a long time just using this material alone before ever having to go out and get the core set. And that's. I
think to add to that as well, old players won't have Johnstown, so they get Johnstown as an entire city to use again and again. And the scenario is 80 odd pages long. It's not a little pamphlet of a scenario. It's a full proper scenario you get with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with the idea really is that the starter set is designed to appeal to both new players and old players, and that's where that Johnstown setting content comes in. That's for them as much as it is for the new players. And basically the scenario booklet, it's 3 scenarios as well, and which are the 2 of them are new. And then the third one is it's basically essentially a sort of an updating and redoing of a previous scenario, which the Rainbow Mounds, which appeared in the supplement Apple Lane, sort of like, it's a sequel of sorts. The older players can go in and play it, and it will be sort of like.
But it should feel new enough, yeah.
For my review of it, I didn't pick up on that it was 3 scenarios because I just had to flick through it to see what, I saw some trolls, I saw the Rainbow Mounds. I just assumed, I'm assuming they can be run one after another.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yes. I mean, it's not just that. The 3 scenarios are all different. So you have a primarily sort of like, an interaction in combat scenario in the first part. The second one is an investigation. And then the third one, Rainbow Mounds, is essentially it's the nearest thing you're going to get to a dungeon exploration in RuneQuest. I'm actually point out that I've actually playtested all of 3 of these scenarios, and they're a lot of fun.
Was Jason Durrell running them? Was
they're
yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Straight from the horse's mouth. Only on Titterpigs. Hands down, it's a great product. It's good for new players, old players. It's made me go buy a bunch of RuneQuest stuff.
Yeah, and you're going to get
compendium.
And you're going to get 3 very good, very articulated, very in-depth reviews from 3 of the people here, me, Bud, and Keith. So.
Yeah,
this is one Pookie has said he just will not review because it's not worth his time.
Absolutely not at all.
Yeah.
What's the point? Other people are doing it.
The thing is, as well about it as well is it's really good value for money as well for what you get.
I think sorry, Pookie, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say. The thing is, what Jason has done with it. He's gone out and he's got collected a bunch of other starter sets for other games and compared them. Okay, and as people have said, that you get somewhere you go, I've got some dice and I've got a rule book and I've got a scenario. In this, you get a whole lot more. That box is packed.
Yeah,
it is full of content. The one thing, when I did do my review, I have done one, is I said, essentially, if you look back at the Call of Cthulhu scenario, the starter set for Call of Cthulhu, that set a new bar for starter sets. And then the thing is, they've done it again. They've raised that bar for starter sets with that Runequest box.
Because I've seen some not so great starter sets, like for example, the Tales from the Loop starter set. The box is twice as big and half as full.
Yeah,
as it's ridiculous how little they get in it.
Yeah, and again, it's the same again with something like the Numenera starter set. There's a lot of content in there, but it's really just one scenario. And yes, in some cases, you go, okay, you've played this scenario, go download this scenario online. That kind of doesn't, you want it. Why can't I have that in my hand now? Why have I got to go and...
I think I said it. I think I summed that up best in my review, kind of ending my review. I said it's the best $29.99 you'll ever spend.
Plus shipping.
Go buy it from your friendly local gaming store. You don't have shipping.
Popular. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean...
No free copies over here.
And I think... And you'll see so many people having got a copy and opening it and unboxing it and so on. It's really proved, I think, to be a really big hit for Chaosium. Obviously, I think primarily with an older audience, but I think if people have looked at one starter set, they'll look at another and go.
Yeah, but I think its design. I think its design makes it
designed
approachable
for an older audience as well.
Yeah. So
it's not just for new players. No. It is the point, and that's why you're seeing a lot of older people buying it.
And that's older people who already have RuneQuest content, who already have RuneQuest books. They're buying it because, well, it's RuneQuest. I'm going to buy that. But they're buying it because they know they're going to get good content.
You get Johnstown, good content, which you don't get anywhere else. Yeah.
And the other thing it should be we haven't mentioned, have we? Is the maps.
Oh yeah, the maps are fantastic. Yeah.
Maps in there are gorgeous. That's Matt Ryan. Even if you take all 4 books and you lay them face down,
make a map on the back.
4 books basically form a pack, but you've got fold out maps in there as well.
Yes,
and they're beautiful. They're lovely. It's so detailed, and you look at them and go, "Oh, I wonder what that place is. Oh, where do you want to go there?" And and that isn't necessarily served in the starter set because that's just extra information. But you want to go and look it up online, or go and find.
Did you notice though the maps, the 4 quadrants on the back of the books, right? That make up the 4 quadrants of that Sartar map are slightly zoomed in from the fold out version of the map. Yeah. So that's
by design, though, isn't it?
It is by design because it's a little less busy because it's dialed in a little bit more to the play areas in which the scenarios are set.
Right, but it evokes the maps themselves evokes what it was like when you opened up that map from Greyhawk, or you open up that map from Forgotten Realms, and you just dialed in on these beautiful maps. Go, what's here? What's this? What's that?
Yeah.
But it's still, you can still see it and read it. It's not. I mean. Yep. So Keith, you have a number 2 to speak of. And
I do.
What would this number 2 be?
My number 2 for this year is going to be, it's actually a brand new book called Matrons of Mystery by Sue Savage. It's a self-published book. It's on lulu.com. So Sue took the best pieces of an investigative powered by the apocalypse game called Brindlewood Bay, the best pieces of that game, and gave it her own spin and took its basic core premise, gave it a very English feel, inspired by English crime dramas, murder mystery shows of the 80s, the 90s, hell, even into the 2000s, some of the influences that she lists in the book. And basically, it's no longer Brindlewood Bay, it's Matrons of Mystery. And it is a fantastic little digest-sized book. It's 42 pages or so, 46 pages. Everything's in the book, including 3 little investigations, mysteries you can play. And it's a lovely little game. I liked Brindlewood Bay. I still do, but Brindlewood Bay has this kind of underlying cultist mythos,
Cthulhu-esque aspect.
Cthulhu-esque horror rising thing that you need to play out like 10 scenarios or 10 mysteries for it to really come to fruition. Sue stripped all that away, and this gets to what I like about the TV shows that have inspired the game, murder mysteries. So you play older women that are 50 years plus, that are in their golden years, they're retired, and you become the busybodies, a group of busybodies, and you get into people's businesses. And for some reason or another, one way or another, you get pulled into a murder mystery case and you solve crime. I enjoyed the read. It's well written. Running it's fun. I ran it for Pookie and another friend of mine, Roz, and we had a great time running it. They had a great time playing it. I had a fun time running it. I know Buds played it. I don't know if you played it yet.
Sue. Sue ran it for me.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Early last week.
Nice. Did you like it?
Yeah, we had a blast.
Yeah. So it just scratches that itch for that kind of murder mystery, that cozy kind of feel vibe that she was going for, that Brindlewood Bay goes for, but has other bits and pieces to it. I think Sue's really captured without all of the other moving pieces, and just does it a little bit better for that type of game that I want. I know this term's overused a lot in the gaming industry, but it's an elegant little game. It really is. So
I thought you were going to say it had flavor.
Oh, it's got the flavor is tea.
Tea, yeah,
and scones.
I think your quote to me, Bud, was this is probably one of the most British games you've played in a while.
It's the most British game I've ever read.
Yeah,
I mean the fact that you're breaking it is a nice sit down and a cup of tea, and that's how you remove conditions. You couldn't really get much more English than that,
right?
I mean, I played it last week with Sue running it, and the thing about it, it's not even really that much about the mysteries. It's about the crazy characters you create. Because I played it with Kay Elling, who's KO on Twitter, and Doc Griffiths, and the three of us were just in pleats the whole session. And we managed to solve the murder and all that, but it was never really about that. It was about playing. I mean, playing someone modelled on my mother and me nan, all the strange traits that they had, and it was just completely believable because they're based on real people. It's very, very English.
Yeah, I mean, I dare not. I probably shouldn't say who I based my character on. No.
But you had us in stitches. I will attest to that. That was fantastic. Yeah, for the record, we're not letting attest to who he was modeling his matron after.
I'll bleep you out.
For legal reasons that you'd have to have a Kickstarter for.
Right.
Yeah, for legal reasons we can't do it. But he had us in stitches, and Roz's character was, I don't know who she was basing hers off of, but she was copping this accent, and it was fantastic, and she was totally getting into character too. It was great.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I would say one thing, that it's a game that does need sort of like 3, possibly 4 matrons to really kind of work. Okay, with 2, it's a bit of hard work.
Yeah, I thought when I read it, 3 would be the sweet spot.
Yeah, I would need to run it again with 3, with 4 to really dial in where the sweet spot is. But I think it's either going to be 3 or 4.
And the thing is about it, the humor in the book is obviously because Sue's English. It's got a very English humor about it. I mean, the fact that you can cure something with a sit down and a cup of tea really kind of says it all, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, you guys have been telling Scott and I for the almost 2 years now that tea fixes everything. So
it's like a universal cure.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I mean, the humor is things like the title of one of the mysteries is Gardner's Question Crime, which I when I did the unboxing of that, I was just looking through, and I'd never seen it before. That made me laugh out loud. I just thought that was really
Ding Dong Death is the other one, isn't it? Yeah.
A fun.
And I know where that one was inspired from. I've actually seen one of the TV series that she references. I've actually seen the episode that was inspired from.
And the thing is, as well, there was one of the scenarios in the book takes place at a role playing convention, and I think someone strongly resembling Pookie is in it.
Maybe.
Well, there's a disquieted gentleman who wears a waistcoat with squared pockets. It's very possible it could be Pookie.
Can't possibly be me. I have never been seen wearing a waistcoat.
In the
Nope,
wild.
Do I have
Not
to
at
get
all.
a screenshot now, do I?
Screenshot it. So,
So
anyways, yeah, that's my number 2. So around the room one more time. And this time we are going to talk about our number 1 top picks of 2021. So first up is Scott.
okay, well, this one took a bit, like with most number ones, but it really set resonant for a minute. But at the end, there was no question that for 2021, my favorite is Impossible Landscapes, the Delta Green campaign, the first campaign they've ever done. This is by Arc Dream Publishing, I think is their full name, and written by Redacted. And
Wow.
written by Dennis Detwiller, Weiler, however way you pronounce it. But anyways, so Impossible Landscapes. It is as I mentioned, is the first campaign produced by the folks who give you Delta Green. What a campaign it is. Now, my perception is coming strictly from the position of a player. Bud here, was very gracious and invited, the three of us, Keith, myself, and Pookie, and also Alex. Oh boy, I'm drawing is it Gillette?
Gwillette, it's one of them.
Yeah, Gothnog, right? One of the authors of Highway of Blood and many other wonderful Call of Cthulhu campaign or scenarios. But anyways, so I own the book, as I think most of us do, and right before I started even reading it is when I got the invite, and the first thing I was told from Bud was, if you own it, don't touch it, don't read it, don't look at it, because you're going to ruin so many good things that it's just it's going to be an absolute travesty that you're spoiling some of this for you. And I've been good. I haven't, other than just an initial page through, I haven't read anything of it. The campaign itself, it is essentially, it's based on the Yellow King and Carcosa, and the madness involving into the Yellow Sign. And boy, is it is this been a roller coaster ride like I've never been on before. We played through we played through the first 2 chapters. Is that correct?
You're halfway through, but I say maybe 3/4 of the way through.
Okay.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
But then chapter 2 is twice as long as any other chapter.
Right.
So you're probably about halfway through the scenario.
So I mean, and it's going to be hard for me to say how wonderful this is without doing any spoilers. So I'm going to do my best here. But we played through the first part, which is titled The Night Floors, which is a kind of a redoing of the original scenario, which was penned by Detwiller for the first edition Delta Green, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously, our resident historian, correct me if I'm wrong, Bud. Wait, no, Pookie.
Bud, Pookie, Bud.
No, but which was fantastic. I think how it's been described is me looking utterly confused, angry, and upset most of the time because we're playing online. And most of the time, when we get to some sort of ridiculous, mind-twisting event, those famous words are said by me every single time. Fucking Detwiller.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Because it's set in the right context. It is everything that you would want from this type of campaign. Mind-bending, mind-twisting, just, you're never really sure what's going on. You're always uncomfortable due to the aspects going on. It's highly deadly. I'm on my second character, as most of us are.
Nope.
Well, yeah, not you.
Well, sort of. I kind of am, but not. I was revived.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you were lucky, is what that was. Yeah.
Which I'm not going to feel too bad about, because after you go through the first chapter, there's an immense amount of time goes by, about 20 years or so, and you pulled the short straw on where your character was after time went by. So it's I don't feel too horrid that you're still existing in this suburban lifestyle that your character has rolled into. But that's from the player side, and I'm not going to spoil too much from someone else who might be talking about this. But the other thing, just to note, there's a lot of involvement from the game master side, from the handler side, that doesn't necessarily just involve you running the game for the players, but there's bits of insanity and things that you're going to deal with when you're reading this. But I'll leave that for one of the others here to discuss. But it is engaging. We've had a giant break from this game. I am looking forward to getting back into it. I have out of most everything that I played this year, this is the one where I've done my best to make sure that I'm available, even when I do mistake it and screw up the schedule as I've done. There's another catchphrase for that, but we can let that one go. We don't have to say it.
You deserved it, Scott. You deserved it.
I concur.
But no, it's. I mean, what can I say? Most people listening to this knows what Delta Green is, knows what it can be, knows what it's like, and kind of knows what to expect. But even with that, even if you've been playing in Delta Green for years now in an ongoing campaign, when you go into this, you think you know what's going on, and you think you know what's going on. You don't. Even if you're running it, you think you know what's going on, but there's a good chance you don't know either. But yeah, so that's. I'm going to kind of cut it a little short here because, like I said, it's hard without spoiling it. So I'm just not going to. I'm going to avoid that and try not to flub it up. But if you're a Delta Green fan or you love the aspects of the Yellow King and the Yellow Sign in Carcosa, if you like that kind of mind warping, twisted, horrific aspects like that, play it. This is something that you won't regret. And for it being such a large running campaign, it's not going to take you 5 years to run like the high end Call of Cthulhu campaigns. This maybe a year or less, but I mean I know that says a lot, but believe it or not, a year goes by like that when you're engaged as you are within this campaign. So yep, Impossible Landscapes. That's my favorite thing of 2021.
Yeah, we're still in 2021.
I know. Shit,
I just a few more days.
Yeah, for a few more days. I'll just add that, as a player, I've immensely loved it. I mean, I turned down the opportunity to play another Saturday game fortnightly in 2022 for the first projected 8 or 10 months of the year, just so I wouldn't conflict with Impossible Landscapes, because I'm invested in the game. I'm committed to it because it's an amazing experience. So I can see why it's your number one pick. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Agreed. I mean, it's just the depth and detail to it, and even just a very kind of brief flick through, browse through. It looks, the layout is actually amazing. The artwork is superb, and then when you actually come to be given the clues, a traditional Call of Cthulhu handout. Oh, here's a letter. Okay, or here's a newspaper. Article. Fine, you read those, get the clues, go investigate that bit next part of the mystery. There's clues within each of the handouts. A lot of them are puzzles. Whether it's tiny things like dots above certain words, or what's this symbol mean, and you're tying it up. And there's a website that that's been set up associated
it's absolutely
with the campaign. It's the attention. Yeah, it's the attention to detail like that. You're absolutely just a gob.
I think another thing to point out is there's so many times where I've been told, Scott, you're just there shaking your head. You have your head in your hands again. Are you okay? Because you'll get a clue and you will treat it like Pookie said, like this Call of Cthulhu thing, and you'll think you figured it out, and you'll test your theory, thinking I've got it. No, you don't. It doesn't work. You need to start thinking not outside of the box, but you need to become the box, I guess, and just get as twisted as you can.
Yeah.
It's a campaign that really will confound
seasoned
long-term players. Yeah, seasoned players of Call of Cthulhu and other Lovecraftian investigative horror role-playing games. It's not constructed like that. The clues and what's going on appears to be much deeper than you're necessarily
I would offer that
used
if
to.
you've built a straw man theory built off the clues, just burn your fucking straw man and think outside the straw man, because that's where you're going to go.
Yeah, but on the plus side, the burning
That is
straw man
true,
will at
'cause you
least
might need
keep
it.
warm at night.
So, Bud, do you want to offer any comments now, or do you want to refrain?
Well, I might as well just go to my number one because it ties bookends.
Okay.
It,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my number one pick for 2021 is Impossible Landscapes. Hardly probably surprising given
Shocking.
the nature of my YouTube channel. I've done full breakdowns of many Delta Green products, and as the guy running it for you guys, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I mean, as you were saying about the clues, when you think you've got it, there's clues that appear in the first part that already freak you out, and then when you take a look at them in the second part, they have a whole new meaning. Yeah. The attention to detail, and I mean, the book itself messes with the handler's head. Like whenever you see the word "the yellow sign" written on a page, it's burned into the page. So and occasionally the book is filled with annotations like a mythos tome, and there's one bit. It's not a spoiler. There's one bit that you eventually starting to work out who the handwriting is in the book. And there's one quote from the yellow sign, and there's a set of handwriting that says, "I wrote this." And then underneath it is a new set of handwriting saying, "No, you didn't." It was like that moment of like, who's this? We're 2 chapters into it. I've never seen this handwriting before. It plays with your head. The book itself. I mean, I've spoken to like Dr. Mitch and Griff, and they both said to them, it's like a work of art, the book. Mm-hmm. It's beautifully put together. The very layout of it messes with your head. When you eventually get to read it, just check out the index at the back. Even the index messes with your head. Shit. Because it's got annotations in it.
Oh, God.
It's an absolute... I mean, what has been funny for me running it, I've played with Pookie a number of times, and it's the first time I've ever seen him flustered. The first time I've ever seen him not know how to respond to something. And it's and when that happens, I'm like, yeah, it's working. I'm doing it right. Yeah. And I mean, as I say, the number of times Scott, the bit in the night floors where he literally just wanted to know what the time was. And I said, when you look at your watch, the hands are spinning around, and I watched them crumble on the screen.
That was beautiful.
His hands. It's incredible. And when you come to think about it, I mean, the original Night Floors was 1998. The original it was written as essentially an exercise to show how the King in Yellow could be done in Delta Green.
Right.
And then Dennis the Twiller's worked it into the scenario. It's a perfect fit how he's done it. And I remember reading at the time when I think he put the whole manuscript on his Patreon. I remember seeing a reply on Twitter saying, "I've read the whole thing. This is Delta Green's Masks and Nyarlathotep." And I remember thinking to myself, well, we'll see. And because you think of a Master Nyarlathotep has had how many editions for them to tweak it and refine it, and now the 7th edition version is essentially Chaosium have admitted this is as good as it's going to get. They're not going to make it add any more to it. This is it, and you think, oh yeah, well if it's Master Nyarlathotep, this is the first crack at it. This is the first time it's ever been published. So imagine if they did a later edition of it down the line, how much better it would be. To be just tweaked and tightened, and
I think that's only going to work if we hear Dennis has been committed, and he's literally writing the updated one with a pencil in his mouth, with his
scrawling on the wall of his padded
exactly.
cell.
And Shane Ivey is occasionally coming in just to collect the scribblings and going, right.
Like the shrine in the Night Floors. It'd be like that, but it'd be just But if I could think of one way of improving it, and there's only really one way, is if it had a prop set like Masks.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I mean, imagine what that would be. Yeah. A properly done HP Lovecraft Society prop set for Impossible Landscapes. It'd be fantastic.
But it would be several tiers, because the only thing I can think of out of everything I would want, at least so far, experiencing, and this is not a spoiler because you're going to know what I say when I mean it when I say it, is the machine. Even if it didn't work, just having that thing there to put down in front of your players and go, this is what you see, and just have them, look around it, still trying to figure out what the hell this thing is, just like their characters would be, and go, what do I do with this? Like, I don't know.
It would be fantastic if that doesn't come about. If somebody could actually do a 3D model of that online.
3D
and
printer.
You just have that. Yeah, well, not 3D print it, but just have it sort of like you can view it online.
Yeah.
And
like augmented reality.
Yeah.
Because that's like this kind of emerging thing for the game scene now is this augmented reality jivey thingy bobber with your phone.
Someone started doing it with masks, haven't they? And they had an augmented reality.
What is that? Type 4? Is it Type 40 or some other companies doing some stuff for Call of Cthulhu that's augmented reality now?
Oh,
yeah.
It's a Type 40. They're the ones that do that fancy book cover folder type thing. I think it's the same people. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they've got some Call of Cthulhu scenarios, that's basically one shots, and they did the Runequest.
But I could see something like that to represent some of those things that you couldn't put physically into a prop kit. But I think you're right, Bud. I mean, that would be fantastic to have that kind of treatment for Impossible Landscapes. That would take something that's already this impressive and just like send it over the edge.
Yeah. I mean, I have a copy, and I am due to review it. But I can't. I just don't want to spoil it.
Don't spoil it for yourself. You will regret it.
You know, and it is a case of one of the few times I think where I will be reviewing something that I've played through fully, because obviously, as reviewers, we get to read a lot of stuff and review it before we ever get to play.
Yeah.
Well, I do look forward to the 27 hours later after we finish this, Pookie, that you actually read the whole book and do your review an hour after that. So.
Well, you will have a different perspective on it, as you say, because you'll have played it and then you'd read it, and then you'll be able to put the two together. So that's my pick for the year, and if it doesn't win awards, it's criminal. If it doesn't win an award,
100%. Yeah,
I would agree. Pookie, what is your number one pick, my friend?
I almost went for The Company of the Dragon, which is the sequel to last year's or the year before's 6 Seasons in Sartar from the Johnstown Compendium. Of course, a RuneQuest supplement, but what I'm going to pick is the RuneQuest Starter Set.
Reoccurring theme.
I don't think I've ever quite seen a starter set as good as this for one setting. And when basically in the past 2 or 3 years, starter sets have got good again. Because I think what's happened is people have kind of looked at the starter sets of the past, and they've been essentially they've looked at it and gone, well, okay, let's make this as good as we can. Let's not do it to sort of like, what can we just knock out? This is a gaming product with which we want to sell our game and intellectual property, and get people to come back to it and pick up the core book. As I said earlier, Chaosium did it previously with Call of Cthulhu very, very well, and then they've just sort of like, we can do better with the Runequest Starter Set. And one way in which they've gone one step better is making it appeal even more to the dedicated Granthophiles, the devotees of RuneQuest, than necessarily perhaps the Call of Cthulhu Starter Set did.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So
the comparison I would make would be comparable, although not a direct comparison, comparable to the Warhammer Starter Set, because it contains material that's nowhere else. So it's going to get it's going to get your old players to buy it as well as your new ones, because the new ones want to play it. The old players want the extra material. It's because you get Ubers right, don't you? Yeah.
I mean the Cthulhu Starter Set has scenarios in it, 3 scenarios in it, which are unavailable for 7th edition, but they're updates of previously available scenarios, and they're classics. But no, all of the content in the playable content in the RuneQuest Starter Set is new, and the other thing it does with that new content is that it is a couple of days ride from Apple Lane, which is essentially the starting point for if you're playing in RuneQuest on Sartar in the GM's pack and the adventures. You can plug the two together with relative ease, especially given that the third scenario, Rainbow Mounds, is not that far away from
it. Ties it all together.
And a majority of the pre-gens that come with the the GM kit are the same characters that are within here and that they've been utilizing, since the
quick start.
The quick start, yes.
The Broken Tower. The Broken Tower. Yeah. Essentially, they are using the signature signature characters they used before, but they're putting them in the new format of the new character sheet, which is really kind of a lot more accessible. And then they're supporting it with another 8 different characters, which not seen before, which showcase the range of characters you can have that are possible. And I know, I mean, the one thing I think people kind of said, kind of jokingly, is going, there's no ducks or non-humans in it. To be honest, at this point, I don't think that's really an issue, because essentially playing a non-human race, a member of the non-human race is in RuneQuest, it's not like playing in D&D. It's another step up in complexity and back what you would get in a starter set.
Think about an elf, for example, if you wanted to play an Eldritch army. They're literally walking plants. They're not like elves in any other setting.
Yeah. And I mean, the same thing again with the Muscali. They are completely alien. Easiest kind of 2 races you would actually play, I think, if you're doing with the elder races, would probably be trolls or ducks, actually. But it comes back to, again, essentially, as Keith has said, the starter set is incredible value for money. You have 14 characters in there, which means essentially if you've got a group of six players, that's 2 sets of characters just in case one dies. Yeah. And you're going to get months and months of gameplay.
I mean, when you think about it as well, if you bought the GM pack and you've got the quick start, you've got a fair hefty amount of material to work with there.
Oh my god!
Because not only have you got the broken tower, you've got the extra stuff in there, and you've also got, and it all ties together.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, the point is that I'm running you through in the RuneQuest game, through the initial scenarios for the GM's book. At some point, I will take you off in the direction of Johnstown and do those scenarios as well. It's just adding extra. The thing is, and if you think about it, if you're an experienced player, you don't necessarily need all the rules, okay? But you're getting the scenarios, you're getting background content, which you can add to your campaign.
Yeah.
I think Johnstown's the big thing, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
I mean, we already said how good the maps are of the region. The map of Johnstown itself is terrific.
Yeah, everything's labelled as well.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful map.
Everything's labelled. Yeah. And the thing is, when you go through the text, okay, and it's describing particular quarters, they take excerpts of that map and put it next to the text.
You know where it is. Yeah.
So that you can really easily.
Yeah,
it's incredibly
one thing
I
would comment on it, and I don't think it's been brought up yet. Those 3 scenarios, they are like programmed learning scenarios, in that the first of the 3 scenarios, it's a little more guided on the GM side of things to make sure that you, potentially as a first time game master, you have some frame of reference for some of the rules that are being introduced that you're introducing for the players and things like that. And it's very conceptually basic but it's a fun little scenario. And then the next scenario is more socially oriented and city based and investigative, and expands on what the rule premises are that are in the rule book, that the players can now use more rules and expand what they've learned and apply that. And then the Rainbow Mounds is just kind of wide open.
Yeah, the only other one that I'm familiar with that kind of goes that route is Cymbaroom with its Copper Crown scenarios, which kind of each one of 3 focuses on different aspects, so you get familiar with not just the whole entirety of the game, but this one's focusing on combat, this one's focusing on role playing, and this one's kind of tying it all together and see how it comes, which is great. It's a wonderful. It's nice having that learning tool, not just here's the rules, here's a scenario, now go figure it out. So that's
Yeah, I liked it as a new person to the RuneQuest world and game or Glorantha as a whole, the RuneQuest game. When I read through the scenarios to write my review, I thought the way they designed the scenarios in the order in which they laid them out, I thought it was fantastic.
It made me kind of excited for what's coming.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it as somebody new to the game. I felt like this product was made for me. I can see returning players and players that have been playing for a long time. I can see the appeal that they, the things that you guys find in the box appealing. But as a new player, I feel it's made for me. but I can also, again, like I said, I can also see why you guys say, no, it's made for me. It's made for two different types of audiences, and it's a hell of a marketing angle that they took, and they did it right.
I mean, it was 2.5 years in development, and it shows.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it begs the question: if the Runequest Starter Set is this good, how good is the Pendragon 6th Edition Starter Set going to be?
Who knows?
Oh yeah,
but
they want to do one for all of the games, but look at it, don't they?
Yeah.
And just then next time there's a new edition, just update it.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is, going down the road, you're looking again possibly at Rivers of London,
Seventh Sea,
and the other thing they're doing is Lords of the Middle Sea.
No, I think it's Middle Sea.
No, it's not Seventh Sea. It's Lords of the Middle.
They also do Seventh Sea though.
Because the Seventh Sea is yeah, but Lords of the Seventh Sea is Lords of the Middle Sea is something they're developing in-house.
I believe that is correct.
What I'd like to know, Pookie, then is how soon is our campaign after we get past Johnstown? When are we getting to the Land of the Ninja?
Via the Land of the Vikings.
The thing is, yeah. Well, the thing is, you might. The thing is, I can imagine you going to the Land of the Vikings. The Land of the Ninja? Well, you won't see them. So you won't.
Top answer.
All right, so we're gonna do my number one. Yeah, so I've got. Can anybody take a guess? I'm looking around the cameras.
Is it the Toon Companion?
I don't think Tingleverse came out with anything this year, but I could be wrong.
Is it the Thousand Thrones?
No, and no.
Is it the?
I'm disappointed.
I'm going with the Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Is it the Dallas board game?
Oh my God, you guys are getting so close, but you are so far away. Nope. Scott?
Monopoly.
Damn it.
All right.
You got it.
That's too complicated. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hold on. Which version of Monopoly?
Well, so to answer that question, the version of Monopoly that I want to nominate for my number one pick for this year is going to be the Twilight 2000 4th edition version of not Monopoly, but for Free League.
Like I said before, I'll insert laughter there. Go on, Keith.
Oh, please. Yes. Clap, 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 clap.
So that's got a suffer radiation damage. Do not pass.
There's another joke. You passed your limit.
But do you get that joke?
I mean, I get it, but I'm not laughing.
Yeah. So yes, Twilight 2000 4th edition from Free League is my number one pick of the year. Simply because, like the Runequest starter set, you get a ton of stuff in this box. This is not a starter set. This is their core game. So it is the Game Master's book in softcover, the player's book in softcover, the Sweden and Polish map, 2-sided, full size in 10-kilometer hexes for the movement rules. There's smaller battle maps, tactical battle maps, all the dice, everything you need is in the box. I think retail's like $55, which is a good price. My estimate is probably with everything that's included in the box and scenario generators and everything in there, you could easily 1.5 to 2 years out of just the core box itself without any of the other stuff that's in the pipeline, various campaigns and scenarios for it. That being said, I actually had the opportunity to play it at a recent online game convention too. And we played a short little scenario or mission, whatever you want to call it. And I enjoyed the living daylights out of it. It uses Free League's Year Zero engine, but modified to fit its theme, its tone. And I think it does it really well. Instead of throwing buckets of D6s around, looking for those elusive 6s to pop up, it uses D12s and graduates down to D6s. So everything has a rating, A, B, C, or D, and A is a D12, all the way down to a D being a D6. And depending on your rating, that's when the single die you throw. You always throw 2 dice no matter what. If you're shooting, you can commit more ammunition to your shot. So you can throw D6 bullet dice, which means you commit potentially more ammunition, which means you can have more hits. It does what it plans to do and says it's going to do, is give you that World War III that never happened feel, in my opinion, very well. I never had the opportunity to play the original game in either first, second, or third edition. It was always one of those games that I would see on the game shelf, and I kind of steered clear of it. I was playing, as a teenager and whatnot, I was playing D&D, and nobody else, or superheroes or whatever, nobody else was playing that particular game where I lived when I was growing up. So I didn't have the opportunity to play it. So this was a little nostalgic buy into Kickstarter for me. And when it delivered, 2 months ago, I was excited to have it.
Now, this is not a starter set. This is a self-contained box set, right?
It is a self-contained box set. Yes, okay. It is. I wouldn't call it a starter set, but because everything you need to play in it, to play the game, is there. The 2 books set for the rules are full, complete rules.
Okay.
Much like Forbidden Lands, right? Has the Game Master's book and the player's book in the box set, and it's a complete core game in the box. This is the same. So it is everything you need to play in the box.
Pookie, do you own a copy of this? Bud? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Bud, do you own a copy of this?
No, I never played it back in the day, so I have nothing to offer to this.
I mean, it's one of those where, I mean, like Keith, I knew of it and I knew it existed. It never appealed to me, not detracting from the game itself, but it's kind of stated in our, the previous podcast was certain game types such as this. This is like strictly this exists in an alternative reality of a world, but still based in reality. There's nothing fantastic about it. You're essentially just, real people surviving in a post-apocalyptic world, not with monsters or gadgets or robots or Fallout type stuff, but your own thing. And that kind of stuff, just, like Keith's Westerns and sci-fi stuff, was never my wheelhouse. But is there anything about it that, that you think, Keith, that would cause somebody to appeal to it, or Pookie? Okay.
I did play it back in the day, a little bit, and I played the 2nd edition, which was the one using GDW's D10 house system, and it was always felt a very militaristic game, and it always felt as if it appealed to players who liked playing militaristic games and having lots of military equipment. And its reputation, I mean, certainly in the UK here, was very much soured by a review by Marcus Rowland, he was scathing of the game for its Americanism, and it's because its focus was entirely upon the US in the original version, and then of course upon the idea of surviving a nuclear exchange at any level. Because obviously the original came out in 1984, and that was
right.
At the height of the
and if
Cold
you were
War.
surviving a nuclear exchange in a game, it probably was our fault.
Probably.
Yeah.
Your specific fault.
And the thing is,
yes. Well, there's a different
Scott's fault.
There's a different type of nuclear exchange that's my fault, and usually when it occurs, my kids leave the room. But that's a different episode. So
see, class like that you can't teach, isn't it?
Only on Titterpigs. Wow. I would. Sorry, go ahead, Pookie. I would add though. I mean, Pookie hit on something. I'm retired military, so obviously I like a lot of military guys, retired or not. I like military things. I play tabletop war games, hex and counter type games, card driven war games. Obviously, there's something there that appeals to me. So there's that militaristic aspect of the game that I do like. I can relate to the game because obviously I have several decades of military background, under my belt, and it's in a time period that I can relate to. I love Call of Cthulhu. It's one of my favorite games, but I didn't grow up in the 30s, right? It's hard to relate to the classic era. Now I have oodles of college degrees and master's credits and stuff like that in history. And so I can relate to that time period because I've done a lot of research in that. But as somebody who didn't live through that time period, it is hard to relate to it for most people. I can relate to these time periods where this game is set. So when they're talking about the different cities and time, the vehicles, the weapons, the things in their fictional or their fictitious, God, I'm making up words tonight. They're fictitious
word.
Yeah. Story, how the nuclear exchanges happened and, the fallout between the nations and what have you, how all that comes about. It makes sense to me. So I think people that have an interest in military history, people that have an interest in modern conflict, this is probably something that's going to appeal to them. If you don't have an interest in it, it may not appeal to you.
Well, one question, I guess this is for you and Pookie, since you have the game, and if you I don't know how much time Pookie spent, but Keith, you have. So one of the things that I've read about the original game, and like a lot of military games, is an attention to the detail of weapons and whatnot, to the point where it's almost ridiculous. It detracts from the game. There's just this enormous amount of detail that it's almost like a side game trying to keep track of this nonsense and whatnot. That may be for some people, but does that carry over into the new game? Have they simplified that a little bit, or?
I actually did an unboxing recently. It's not up online, of the original first edition rules. And looking at it, I didn't find it to be quite as didn't find it that it emphasized the weapons as much as I had kind of remembered. They're definitely there. There is sort of like an inbuilt element of emphasis upon survival, but that's the one thing that is really carried over and made more of in the new version, where they're using that to build around communities. Because essentially there's kind of two drives in the game. So there's the one way, obviously, you stay there in Europe, in Poland or in Sweden, and you build a community and you survive. The other one was going home. And that's the classic kind of drive in the first edition, where you're in Poland, you try and get to somewhere, point of civilization, and from there you go to basically Warsaw and try and get a train to go across to Germany, and then get back to the States, going home. But yeah, that's what's been carried over. Although there is obviously pages and pages of weapons in both versions.
Yeah. Because for me, both of those sound really appealing to play. But from remember, I mean, if a game is like, the computer game Metro 2033, if it was like that kind of thing, I could see myself loving it. It's like, like kind of old stations covered in snow, and they kind of never know what's in there. But the people, I mean, back in the day, it had a really kind of hardcore following. And the people who were into it could name any gun and any caliber of bullet that would go in those guns. It was like a gun obsession game.
I still think you could probably still run into those folks these days. I don't know that you would have that same volume or caliber of person that's fixated on that, in 2021 or 2022, but you might still run into some of those. We run into it in the wargaming community. I mean, there's those folks that are just laser focused on armaments. I mean, that's just kind of their thing.
Yeah. The point to make there is to remember is that Twilight 2000 originally was designed by at least ROTC graduates.
The original game was done by Frank Chadwick, who is an awarded, merited war game designer.
Yeah, right. But the point is, essentially, they had military experience of themselves, whereas I think that's, I don't know about the new designers, the designers of the new version. I don't think they necessarily had that experience, and whether so the emphasis is different.
My understanding is the design team did not have military experience, but they brought in military consultants to advise as advisors for making sure like representations of weapons are right, and vehicle movements are proper, and things that are supposed to explode don't explode huge radiuses when they're only have a very small radius, and that kind of stuff. To answer your question, Scott, though, I don't think it's when I looked through the rules, when I was reading through it, I don't think it's like super hyper focused on all of this crazy
detail.
Litany of
detail like this.
It's got detail, but it's not extensive.
We're not going to get into an argument about the specific weight of a buckshot if I'm shooting a shotgun in a rainstorm. Whereas
no.
And I think that in part that's sort of reflecting the rules where you're rolling these handfuls of D6 or particular dice rather than something where you're rolling like percentile dice, where I think that the emphasis in the mechanics themselves is different. and
It's
support
it's
that
appealing.
difference.
I mean, it's definitely not something that I would be. It's different than if I was just, hey, let's just pretend we are soldiers storming the beach of Normandy. This one sounds like it would be a bit more fun. There's a bit more story aspects to it. That'd be
you're right.
More appealing.
It does want you to focus on the story. So like some of the other games in the Year Zero product line, like Forbidden Lands, right? Mm-hmm. Where you are traveling across a map. In this game, you are traveling across a map. You are checking, as a game master, as your players are moving across a map, if you are playing that type of game, you're looking for, hey, what's in that 10-kilometer hex? Is there some random encounter they're going to, are they going to hit partisans? Are they going to hit rebel forces? Are they going to hit Russians? Are they, are they going to encounter some militia group? Are they going to find nothing as they're moving down this road or off road? Or they're going to come to a town. Is there something going on in this town? Do they need fuel? Well, hey, they need fuel. This town has fuel. But what price are they going to have to pay to get that fuel, that alcohol fuel for their vehicle? What are they going to have to do to get that fuel? And that's where the story then starts to evolve.
And when do we meet Master Blaster?
Yeah.
I'm not going there.
See, if it was like a mix between like Fallout 3 and Metro 2033, I could see myself loving it.
Yeah, because
I think the other thing is in the new rules is essentially it's the allocate. The other thing that's going to make the difference is the allocation of equipment. Because in the original, you basically got a huge wodge of dollars on which to spend equipment, so that everyone sort of like could be wandering around with their own vehicles, up to the point where they have their own M1 Abrams.
Not in this one.
And what this one? I doubt it very much. Okay.
No, depending on the character type or archetype that you're playing, basically tells you what your starting kit is, what starting equipment you have, and some have the possibility of having a vehicle, but there's no guarantee of having a vehicle. If one of them ends up having a vehicle, then you have to. It's kind of a random determination, or the GM can then decide what they have. But usually it would be a random determination. Is it just a 6-pack pickup truck with a cap on the back, or no cap, or do they actually have like an armored personnel carrier that they've commandeered, something like that? Or are they just on foot and then they have to ambush somebody and then steal a vehicle so that then they have wheels?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember sort of like playing it and everyone wandering around, sort of like having a trailer full of equipment and sort of pulling out a Heckler & Koch G11 battle rifle, which is an absurd thing to own. Because it's a prototype and none were really, created. It wasn't realistic. I mean, the setup for this is far more realistic. You're gonna, in a kind of a post-apocalyptic setting, in a sense, you're gonna have the kit that you have on you. But the other thing, neither Pookie or I touched on, you can play civilians in this too. You don't necessarily have to be somebody that has a military background in the game.
See, that also would be kind of a bit more appealing, because the idea of we're a group of well-trained, military people who could technically, this is what we've been trained to survive, so to speak. It is a little bit appealing where if you're playing from, at least for me, who's not in the military, to be, well, what is a civilian going to do in this? That makes it even more difficult and challenging, and kind of.
And you can have a mix of the two together. Somebody could be a civilian, somebody else could be a military, somebody else could be like a teenager, that has their own unique set of skills that they can employ. Cool. And that's why that's why it's my number one pick. It's got a lot of appeal for me. I think for a lot of people it will, once it kind of gets back out there. It's just hitting retail shelves, over the last couple of weeks, just before the holidays. So
fantastic.
I think we'll see a lot more of it in the first quarter of 22. So,
well, Keith, would you like to bring it all in and, kind of see as we conclude part 1 of our podcast?
Yeah. So, no apologies for being a little long-winded today. We kind of warned you that we were going to do count down our top 3. So we took our time and went through this. Hope we made a couple of good cases on our games that we found enjoyable this year.
So not only have we gone over what was our top 3 favorites or recommendations or both for 2021, But what do we have coming in part 2, Keith?
In part 2, we are going to talk about our most anticipated games of 2022. We'll each throw out three of our favorites that we're looking forward to. We're going to roundtable it, so it'll be a little bit quicker and hopefully not quite as long-winded.
Well, thank you. This concludes part 1 of our year-end podcast. I want to thank both Pookie and Bud for joining us in this, and looking forward to having you both back again for part 2 and hearing what you guys are looking forward to coming next year. Anything you'd like to? What's up?
Oh,
there. Well, yeah, we discussed this. I mean, can you not make it, Pookie? Because if you can't, we can find someone else.
You can just pay me double.
All right then.
Keith, payment?
Hold on a minute.
I mean, you didn't negotiate payment.
Shit. Was that what I signed?
We'll talk about that off camera.
Fair enough. So, anything, Pookie or Bud, you'd like to add before we wrap up part 1 here?
Simply, thanks for having us on.
Yep.
This is
and like we will,
there's a lot less swearing than I thought it would be.
Well, I'm fucking sorry, Bud, but we'll try harder in part 2. So as with all things, we're going to try our best to include all the games mentioned here and how to get them within the notes of the podcast. So definitely look for those there. And anything else that we spoke about that we feel needs to be referenced will also be put into the notes. So that is great, Keith. How about you?
All right.
Take us out.
All right. Till next time, we will see you on the next episode. So till then, happy gaming.
Happy gaming. You guys can say that too.
I don't want to.
Okay. On behalf of myself and Bud.
No, I hope you have really bad games.
Fantastic.